We're going to put this all on vinyl at some point, right?
Welcome back to Cartridge Based Radio. I'm Donald, once again joined by Brad.
Hello!
Brad, when I say Final Fantasy, what is the most important game in that franchise?
Well, I mean, I guess it would depend on the criteria you're using, but I'm just going to come right out and say Tactics, because that game's awesome.
That's 100% right. Final Fantasy Tactics is the best Final Fantasy game there is. So let's talk about Final Fantasy Tactics.
Okay. Final Fantasy Tactics, Square game, obviously, came out in early 1998, maybe even January, which is a weird time for games to come out. But it was very early in the year, and it's a free promotional giveaway. It actually came with a calendar, which for, all of the year 1998, which was kind of appropriate because it'll take you a year to finish Final Fantasy Tactics.
That's fair.
So it's just like, here's Tactics, here's your free calendar, you're going to need it.
It was really weird on December 31st, they just wrote, congratulations, you finished Final Fantasy Tactics.
And I looked at my calendar and said, I have not.
And the next page is January 1, 1999. And it just says, you failed us. You're like, oh. No, that's a pretty cool giveaway. I did not have that. Maybe my game store kept them. They're like, man, we're going to make millions off keeping these.
We're going to sell these on the barely existent eBay.
I think I got it mid-99, and I put in my PlayStation, and I was whisked away to the most magical land of Ivalice.
Yes.
Where battles took place on a grid, and it was just so great that first time through.
Yeah.
Things were happening in the story.
Whoo, boy, were they.
My younger mind was like, I cannot wrap my head around this Game of Thrones-esque level of subterfuge. Oh, look, another battle. Hooray!
The plotline to Tactics is fairly complex. And the first time I played it, I was 21. And it was maybe a little... Not that I was this idiotic 21-year-old, but maybe a little bit of it kind of went over my head. And then that was complicated by the fact that it took me a really long time to play through this game. So, I mean, really 12 months later, when I was finishing it, I'd forgotten plot points from earlier in the game. So not everything made sense. But now, older, wiser, and able to play this game through in kind of a continuous way, over the course of 3 or 4 weeks, like I did this time, I can confidently say that I still have no idea what's going on in the story to this game.
I think it's also hindered sort of by the fact that it's way out of order.
Yeah.
It starts in the present where the character you play is named Rosma if you don't change the standard name.
Yeah, and if you are me, then the character is named Ram Jam after 70s Southern rock band.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. So you start out and you're a mercenary, and there's a girl praying in a church. It gets attacked, so you go out to fight. And for some reason, I mean, you're in this really great mercenary group. They're like, we probably should tutorialize this guy because he may have forgot how to fight, which is fair.
It's a really bad quality in a mercenary.
While you're fighting, the girl you are protecting gets kidnapped because no one thought to cover the back door. And you discover it's by your friend. And I have no idea how to say his name, and I've played this 6 times. There's no voice acting. I call him Delita.
Delicia, maybe? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. It looks like they just kind of hit the keyboard a bunch of times until one of them sort of looked like a word, like the vowels and consonants were in the right places. And they're like, good enough. That's his name now.
So after you meet whatever his name is.
Delilah.
Yes. After you meet Delilah, you are whisked back into Rosma's memories of when they were in night school.
Yeah, but not like the night school that I went to get my law degree, but be a fighting kind of night guy.
Yeah, like ITT Tech of soldiering.
So it's like a night school.
It says a lot of things about how you guys are best of buds and you learn to be knights together, but Delilah is a commoner who happens to be in knight school, and you're a fancy royal who's in knight school, which you think he would just go there full time instead of working at the 7-Eleven to pay his way through night school.
You think he'd like be going to Oxford instead of like the medieval equivalent of DeVry.
And why is someone in the royal family going to knight school? Shouldn't he be like above being a knight?
You would think.
He's like the half-son though, because it seems that his dad was a little bit wanderous.
Yeah, he might, and this is, the technical term for it. I'm not just like randomly swearing for fun. He might be a bastard.
According to his brothers, half-brothers, that is the case. But then his dad dies, and he calls for Rosma to his side, and his brother's like, this is crap. But Rosma shows up, your dad kicks it, it's very dramatic, and then it jumps again.
Yeah.
They're like, it's an easy way to follow a story. We're just going to keep hip-hopping through time and see if they can follow this.
They're like, what was popular that we published? Chrono Trigger, where you hop through time. So let's do that, but in a strategy tactics game that no one's expecting it, and it doesn't make sense in the context of the story.
So earlier they said that you're a heretic of the church. So you kind of do this hip-hopping through time, and you get up to the point where they start telling a story about how Delilah's sister gets kidnapped.
Yeah.
And then him and Rosma's like, we'll go save them. And you meet these people who do not like the royals at all. You basically, playing it this time, I was like, this game is class warfare.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Games always handle class warfare situations so delicately.
By delicately, do you mean a sledgehammer to the face?
A sledgehammer to the face, and more often than not, it seems like they actually, take the side of the ruling classes.
Yeah, because you get into one fight, and you have some royal brat with you.
Oh, yeah, that guy's the worst. It's like if you've ever seen Lazy Town and there's that one rich spoiled kid that's just terrible. It's like him, but they gave him military training.
So you're talking to some people who are like, you took all our resources and you had this war that was stupid. I think the War of the Lions.
Which actually, that sounds awesome.
But it's not actual lions fighting.
No.
It's just stupid. So, you took all our resources and whatnot, left us with nothing, and then you're like, this war was dumb. We're not fighting anymore. And you basically screwed us over. And the guy's like, well, you're garbage and you don't matter to me, so I don't care about your complaints. Rosma and Delilah are like, whoa, dude.
You can't just say that. We're all thinking it, but you're not supposed to actually say it.
But then through a chain of events, Rosma sort of kills a high priest, and that's how he becomes a heretic.
Now, that's the high priest that, transformed into a monster, right?
Oh, yeah. But they're like, we can't talk about that because he was a high priest who collected stones to become an esper. That's basically where the actual story of Final Fantasy Tactics starts. Halfway through the game, it brings you back to the present.
Also, we've already overlooked one plot point is that spoiled rich guy kills Delilah's sister, right in front of him. He's just, she's in a hostage situation, and, the guy's just like Keanu Reeves in Speed. He's like, just shoot the hostage, take her out of the equation.
Yeah, so he kills Delilah's sister, and that really upsets Delilah a lot. And he kind of blames Rosma for it. Rosma's like, I didn't kill her. Then he joins the other side of the battle.
Yeah, it gets complicated, I guess you could say. It gets confusing.
He joins the working class people, but then by the end of the game, he marries into royalty.
Yeah, he becomes the king, I think.
For a hot minute, because him and his wife stab each other to death. And he still blames Rosma in his final breaths that this was somehow Rosma's fault, that he murdered his wife and his wife murdered him back. Which, okay. Rosma's not even in the room, but he's like, it's obviously this guy's fault. Like, Delilah cannot take responsibility for anything Delilah does.
That is his main character trait. Yeah, I think it was maybe a little bit of a disservice to this game to have such a complex storyline. Like, you can make a game with a narrative that is, as in-depth and full of intrigue and whatever else as a show on premiere television. But this might not be the format for it, just because it's so broken up in between battles. So much time passes. It's hard to follow all the ins and outs already just with this format of a game. This was probably a game that should have been a lot more of a straightforward, just like good guy versus bad guy. Tactics maybe got a little too clever for its own good storyline wise.
It's like a really, really confusing episode or season of Game of Thrones where there's no like additive material to help you fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like, you guys can follow this story, right? And there's a bunch of teenagers who were like, no, what is happening? But the fact that it's both our favorite Final Fantasies and we can't really tell you what happened in it, it really speaks to the other half of Final Fantasy Tactics, which is the combat and the job system.
This is a genre that I really like, is kind of the tactical strategy where, you're moving your guys around on the battlefield. And then when you add RPG elements to it, I think that's like super fun. I kind of wish all RPGs were like this, but that's not the way it goes. And I've played this, I've played Disgaea, I played Vandal Hearts, Shining Force, even XCOM. It's a sci-fi setting, and it's not real heavy on the RPG elements, but even that is kind of like this, slightly. And I love that game. This is one of my favorite genres. Tactics might actually be the game that does this genre the best.
It's bright and colorful. It looks good still.
Oh, it looks great. On top of the pixel art being really well done, it's super, super well animated. And then, there's cool, like, color effects. There's some spells and, like, some magic items, these stones that the church is trying to get a hold of that, like, do all these cool effects when they get used, and, like, everything turns different colors. They did a really good job of blending 2D and 3D, which is a hard thing to do.
It's got permadeath.
Yeah.
If you don't get them resurrected quick enough, they'll just straight up die, and then they're gone from your squad.
They do leave behind a crystal, which has some of, maybe about half all those hard-earned skills to another character if they pick up the crystal. Did you end up killing off any of your own party members just so that you could transfer their abilities to another character?
Brad, that's dark and awful, and yes.
I had decided that every other time that I've played this game, you start with your main character and some generic guys that you mold into these awesome super soldiers, but you also pick up party members along the way, and I always ended up not using any of the additional characters because I was so invested in my own guys. So this time I made a conscious effort to use the characters that you're given in the story. And that means that I suddenly had all these guys that I'd worked on developing that didn't really need anymore. And they might have gone out to a little random encounter in the desert and not come back.
It happens. I mean, they didn't hydrate. That's the official story. Just fell down. Didn't get back up.
It's like, hey, the last enemy got turned into a frog, so he's not very dangerous. We can really take our time and fight him in a leisurely... Why have you all turned on me? Why are your swords out?
Wait, so you actually killed your own people?
Oh, yeah.
I would just let the enemy do it so it seemed more like, that. Oops, that happened in battle. Brad, you might be a monster.
Frog is one of the best spells in the game because it keeps the enemies alive so the battle keeps going, but they're harmless. They'll run up to you, do their 1 damage. Most of the time they'll just run away and hide in the other corner of the stage. And that gives you plenty of time to, maybe stage an accident for one of your characters and then wait for him to crystallize and take his crystal.
Yeah, your method of this is way more twisted than mine, but end result is the same, so I can't really throw much shade on what you're doing.
You seem to keep using this word twisted when I believe you mean to say efficient.
Okay, yes, in the Rupture Farm kind of way. So you can get a Chocobo.
Yeah, you could have a whole army of Chocobos if you want.
I mean, how cool are you walking onto the battlefield with Chocobos? They're like, this guy's a joke, and then your Chocobos murder everyone, and they're like, oh, those beaks are huge and hurt your skull.
Oh, and this one throws meteors for some reason.
That's a healing Chocobo. What is going on? The reason you have this wide variety of Chocobos throwing black, white, red magic is you can give a Chocobo a job.
Just like in Monster Rancher.
Well, that's a lot darker than Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah.
You can give anybody a job in this game, and the job system is cool, and I don't think anyone has topped Final Fantasy Tactics' job system.
No. Disgaea has kind of a weird job system where once your character gets leveled up to a certain point, you can reset them back to level 1 in a different job, and they'll keep some of the aspects of their previous jobs. So like if they were a ninja and they had like really high speed and movement points, and then you made them a warrior, they become a warrior with above average speed and movement, and they'd be a little better with ninja weapons. But that pales in comparison to what you can do in Tactics, where you can keep changing jobs, and you're allowed to keep certain skills that you learned in previous jobs. You can have a secondary class of one of your old jobs, and then like counter skills, movement skills, and I guess what you might call like passive skills, things that are attributes that you have that you don't have to actively use. They're just kind of there, like being able to equip certain items. Those you can all bring over from old jobs. So it's really probably one of the best leveling systems I've seen in a game like this.
You just keep passing people through jobs over and over, and then pretty soon you have like a ninja thief chef who likes alchemy. No, it makes you create like any team you want through this system that perfectly tailors to whatever playstyle you're going for that time. Like, if you want to go heavy on tank, there's ways to make just unstoppable tank units. It's not the best idea because the ranged magic people are going to just chew you up.
Yeah.
Or you can make, like, a black mage who also knows how to control time. And that's real handy. I use that a lot. I think the time mage, like, everybody I talk to has played this game, and they're like, I don't understand the time mage. Like, the time mage is the most important mage, because he can haste you.
Yeah, like, it's pretty straightforward. The time mage can cast haste on your allies, stop on your enemies, and when he gets sick of actually manipulating time, he can just use demi on all your enemies.
That's just a weird thought. Like, he's sitting there, he's like, hey guys, I'm really tired of controlling time. Can I do something else? And like, you can control time. Like, if you want a piece of toast, you can cast haste on the toaster. Instant toast.
Cast slow on the enemy's toaster, and they'll never get their toast. We'll be all toasted up, and they'll still be standing around their toaster like a bunch of chumps.
First, you take away all our supplies and our food, and now you won't even let us make toast. Yeah, just the breadth and width of what you can do with your team. I don't know if anyone wants to, like, invest that much time in creating that sort of system in their games. Like, XCOM really dumbed it down with, hey, this person got enough kills, they're now a sniper for reasons. And it's just like you have the one job system in XCOM.
Yeah.
Disgaea has the whole weird thing with you can enter a weapon.
Yeah, that's kind of neat.
Disgaea is a crazy game, though.
Yeah, Disgaea we'll have to do a show on sometime. That game is bananas. But I think in terms of just like solid fundamentals, like Tactics is, and I love Disgaea, but Tactics is probably light years ahead of Disgaea just in terms of like being a really solid foundation.
Final Fantasy Tactics has had some ports over the years.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, I always go back to the PlayStation 1 version.
I think you do it for the awesome translation.
Yeah, that didn't also help the story.
No!
I think that someone thought these were words that go together in a speech bubble, but they were wrong.
I'm going to read you a couple of quotes from Final Fantasy Tactics. Here's one. It's not your fault, but I'll keep blaming you until there's a change. And then working along the same kind of general concept of blame, someone I think they get killed, and their killer tells them, blame yourself or God.
Sound advice, I suppose. Like, here's your two choices, you or God. Please pick one.
But don't blame me.
The person who stabbed you. Isn't there really bad dialogue at the end when they're stabbing each other?
Yes. Delilah's last quote in the entire game, his last dialogue, is just like, Ramza, what did you get? And then he dies. And, like, I don't think Ramza's there. He's just like, eh.
No, he rode off on a chocobo and he's like, see ya, chumps, and left. He's like, I don't know what's going on in this world anymore. I'm gonna go elsewhere. They tried to fix the translation in the PSP version, and then they tried to make it look better, and there are strong air quotes around look better, because they just stretched it out to 16:9, but it's not like they redid the aspect ratio. They literally just stretched the graphics, so everyone's like super wide.
Oh, I hate it when they do that.
And then I think the iPhone version is just that PSP version, so not good. But if you want just a good looking game, you just go back to the PS1 version.
Yeah.
Like on the Vita, it takes out like the standard definition TV blurriness, and that game suddenly looks super, super sharp. Same on computer monitors if you somehow have it displayed on a computer monitor. That's weird. Who would do that?
Did you do that?
No, I played on the Vita.
Right.
Because you can just hit the suspend button when one of your kids is like, the other kid threw tapioca all over the kitchen. You're like, I'll just suspend this for a minute. Deal with this tapioca problem.
I'll just suspend this and go throw tapioca on the offending child. Now everyone has tapioca on them.
And no one likes tapioca at the same time. Why is it even in the house?
Why do we have this?
It just seems like something you should have. I don't know.
I'm an adult. I was at the grocery store and I saw tapioca and I thought, I'm supposed to buy this.
Now, I got Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced for the GBA, thinking, oh yes, a new Final Fantasy Tactics. And while the combat is good, the story on that one is super dumb.
Yeah.
But again, the combat, but you can't rotate the camera, so that was kind of a letdown.
Yeah, I had that game, and I remember I played a little bit, and I don't know what it was specifically, I don't remember anymore, but I couldn't really get into it. It was close, but the magic just wasn't quite there. Maybe that was a me problem. Maybe that wasn't, a problem with the game. Maybe I just wasn't in the mood for it right then or something. So, I figure I'm either going to blame myself or God for not enjoying it.
I finished it, and it has one of the most frustrating final encounters in a game, I believe, because they throw a final boss at you that is brutal. I finally beat her, and I was like, I am an amazing video game player. And then she does the worst thing Final Fantasy games do. She's like, you have beat my mortal coil form. Now I will enter my final form. And they don't give you any chance to, restock your magic or any items. And you're like, I barely made it through your fleshy form. And then she just runs you over.
Does she literally run you over? Does she stop being immortal and transform into a truck?
She just gets in a 57 Chevy and just flattens you.
This is my greaser for...
You're like, John Travolta from Grease? No, she was super brutal. And then I had to, grind for 30 hours to get strong enough. Because it's the most unbalanced final boss fight. And then you're greeted with the horrific ending of you meet the kid who imagined he was in a Final Fantasy game and you entered a Final Fantasy game. That's the story. And he realizes it was wrong to pull everyone into Final Fantasy Tactics. So you all go home. But at that point, your main character is like a demigod. There's no way he's like, yeah, cool, let's go home. Let me give up all these magical powers and my 90 job classes and go back to grade school.
This guy's like, I just killed God. Do you understand? Like, God fought me and I won and God is dead. And now I have to go back to elementary school with that knowledge.
He probably would have just plunged his sword into that kid's heart and been like, blame yourself. Or me. On the gameplay side, it's Final Fantasy Tactics, but on the story side, it made more sense than the original, but at the same time, it was not a good story. I think they made one for the DS.
Was that the War of the Lions?
No, War of the Lions is PSP.
Okay.
I keep meaning to play the DS one, but we're not here for those. This game did get bigger, but it never reached the heights of the first one. And really, I think Final Fantasy Tactics helped propel this genre into what it is today.
Yeah.
Like, you can go on Steam and type Tactics, and there's a lot of games to play in the Tactics genre.
Probably too many. You know, as much as I said that this is one of my favorite genres, there's not a ton of games that have really done it well. So, you know, you really just kind of wish that, like, somebody would just blatantly rip off the tactics formula with the job classes and the ability to keep skills from one of your previous jobs. But most of the tactical games that I've played since then really have kind of come up with their own less interesting systems for leveling up.
So, yeah, I have no idea what the story is in Tactics. I mean, it's there. It facilitates the ability to move from battle to battle.
You know, the storyline in Tactics is sort of like the storyline in Skyrim. As far as I'm concerned, the story to both these games is weak guy, goes out, fights a lot, gets a whole bunch of skills, and becomes awesome.
That's fair.
You know, I never really thought too much about, like, being Dragonborn or Ramjam Bellevue overthrowing the royal family or whatever. It was just like, now I'm a ninja, now I'm a thief, now I'm a mathematician. My life's awesome.
And at the end, he just retires.
Yeah.
I mean, he gets out of this the best. It's like, he just leaves. He's like, you guys are all stupid. I hear there's other places I could live that no one thinks I'm a heretic. He puts his stuff on the back of a Chocobo that's probably been his teammate for a couple 100 hours, and he just leaves.
Yeah.
And everyone who left behind still hates him a lot. They have no idea where he is, but they're like, we hate him! Except one guy who's like, he's innocent, and then they light him on fire.
Yeah. And they're like, no one can know, or something.
And then at the end, the biggest twist is this game is being told by a historian who's still trying to clear Ramjam's name. Okay, like, that's kind of out of left field. At the beginning, it asks you your birthday.
Zodiac symbols are supposed to kind of factor into this a little bit, and it never became a big enough aspect of the gameplay that I felt the need to look up exactly how they were impacting things. It keeps track of the day in the game, so it might be like if it's like the month that your sign is, like maybe you get a bonus. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like at some point someone had this great idea for how this would work, and then it wasn't quite working out, but they couldn't figure out how to pry it out of the game.
Yeah.
So they kind of just left it. Because at no point did I think, oh man, I'm really at a disadvantage. By the end of the game, you think, oh man, everyone I'm facing is a real disadvantage.
It's like, oh, I have a character who can just like 100% of the time break your weapon, and then you don't have any of your skills, and it also takes like 3/4 of your health in that one attack.
Yeah, you're supposed to be like this heretic that no one is supposed to associate with, and then you roll up with the biggest army. Like, you make Shining Force look small. Except for you're kind of more picky than Shining Force about how you get your troops.
Yeah, there's no, like, little kids or random birds joining your army.
Well, technically there is random birds joining your army.
Yeah, I made the mistake of having one join me, and then, like, it started breeding like crazy, and all of a sudden, like, I had, like, 10 birds that I had to kick out of my party.
You mean you took them out in the desert and came back with buckets of delicious chicken?
Oh, if only there was a buffalo we could kill for some sauce.
The Chocobos come by and they're like, oh, this is delicious food. What is it?
It's Gary.
Listen, Drew, don't think about it. Whatever you do, don't think about it. Because obviously a Chocobo's named Drew. and Gary.
Yeah, then the humans have weird names.
Yeah, but they're looking at those guys like, what is wrong with those names? Like, I don't know, Delilah. Ram Jam. That's a fantastic name for a character, by the way.
Yeah, I was pretty pleased with that one. Yeah, I wish you could have renamed like your attacks or something, because I would have really loved to attack people with like a spell called Black Betty, but it was not to be.
You'd get into a situation where you've named all your spells Black Betty.
Now, come on, Ram Jam had several hit songs. I just can't think of any of them right now.
Let's go ahead and say Ram Jam had a hit song and leave it at that. One of my favorite things is the black mages look so cool in this game. Like you said earlier, the animation is top notch, but they just gave like the coolest treatment to the black mages, which I think later informed like Vivi in Final Fantasy IX.
It could be. You know, they're based on the art for the character classics in the very first Final Fantasy. Like, that's a black mage from Final Fantasy. They obviously have been redrawn to look a lot better, but it's the same look and appearance.
But it's like they took that look and that became basically the canon for these characters in all future games. And Ivalice is like, I think, the most beloved setting in Final Fantasy, to the point where Final Fantasy XII takes place in Ivalice.
Well, that's cool.
You have the judges. I think the judges were from Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced. Those guys sucked, but I really liked it. So they'd give you a rule set before the fight started, and if you broke the rules, the judges would show up and lay the hammer down on you.
I think that's part of why I didn't like Advance. Yeah, now I had totally forgotten about that, but yeah, I think that was a big part of why I was just like, this isn't as good as regular Tactics, where I can, you know, like frog everyone and then murder my own party for no good reason. One of the things that I love about Final Fantasy Tactics is you have all these job opportunities, you know, different types of jobs that your characters can do. You know, thieves and ninjas and summoners. And the most powerful classes in the game are the mathematician and the dancer. It's like, what are you? I'm a samurai. I can draw my sword out and ghosts come out and attack my enemies. And then when I get bored of that, I'll just cut them in half. What are you? I dance. And it makes all my enemies get bad status effects and takes them right out of the battle immediately. The only problem with the dancer is that it takes a long time to build a character up to the point where they can become a dancer. Because otherwise, like, you get a party of 5 people. I wanted to roll into battle with the Spice Girls. I wanted to just have like 5 dancers come out there and just start singing Wannabe and dancing to it and like just wrecking havoc on all my enemies.
They'll tell you what they want, what they really, really want. You dead.
I want you to be a frog, and you to be a statue, and you to lose 50 HP, and you to be mute.
And then you just have Ram Jam standing there stabbing frogs and statues. And he's like, what has my life become?
Why am I fighting a statue?
He's just sitting in a chair sipping an ale, watching these dancers wreak havoc. And he's like, good job, guys. Have some job points.
I mean, I suppose I could have done it with male characters, have them all be singers, and then I could have had like the Backstreet Boys as my army.
Brad, no one wants that. They want 98 degrees. Duh.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit older, so, you know, I guess I'm more of a Backstreet Boys guy, and you're more of a 98 Degrees guy.
Wouldn't that be New Kids on the Block?
Not that old.
They're so dreamy, though. Marky Mark. Take Marky Mark into battle with the Funky Bunch.
My army is 2 samurai, a mathematician, and Right Said Fred.
I'm too sexy for my sword. No, pick that back up.
You need that, you idiot.
Well, you'd get a crystal out of him, so at least that's something. Later on in the game, when you're got your team together that you really like, there's always that random moment where one of them will die.
Yeah.
and you can't res them or get the battle done fast enough, and then you have to watch them poof into a crystal, and you have to make the hard decision of, do I turn this off and cheat and get that person back, or do I just live with the consequences of what just happened because I made a stupid move?
Well, I mean, I was killing most of my guys off on purpose, so that factored in a little bit. But it might be because I'm kind of paranoid about getting my guys killed, so I played it pretty cautiously. I didn't really lose a lot of characters to permadeath. I did get a couple of lucky breaks once. I had 2 characters on a bridge, and they both died, and I couldn't get to them, but I had a calculator who could do the raise spell. So I did it for that height, and this was late in the battle. I ended up bringing like 3 enemies back to life, but I also brought back my 2 characters. So I caught a break that way. I will Phoenix down people that I know are just going to get killed the very next turn just to reset their meter before they become a crystal. So I've used a lot of cheap tactics to avoid losing characters, but when I do lose one, it's reset time, or it's let my whole army get wiped out and get a game over time.
The calculator is one of the classes that always made me laugh, because you have all these like samurais and alchemists and black mages, and then a guy walks up with an abacus and they're like, you're coming with them? It's like, yeah, I calculate on the battlefield. Okay. Because you know when the new classes unlock, you're like, I gotta use this new class.
Yeah.
But it has to seem weird to everyone. Like when your biggest, toughest knight is like, I'm a dancer now. Or I traded in my sword for this loot. It's like, what are you doing, Richard? What are you doing?
The calculator's got to be an especially weird one, because you come up all through magic, and then all of a sudden, like at some point in your arcane study, you discover science or something. You're like, it's all just math. I can control the universe with math. It's a way overpowered class as a secondary skill. It sucks to actually try to take a calculator into battle, because they get like 1 turn for everybody else's 2 turns. And it takes them forever to build up job points to unlock skills. It takes them forever to use any of their abilities on the battlefield. So what you got to do is you just take your calculator into a bar, as you do, and you leave him there, and he goes and does some jobs for the bartender, and he comes back with all these awesome skill points. And then you always just use your calculating as like a secondary skill, preferably with a really fast character. Like you have a thief with math skills, their second thing, like immediately, like first round of the battle, you're just like, all right, turn all the enemies into frogs, and then we'll just go stab frogs for a while.
I went to college and became a mathematician, but then discovered being a thief was just so much better. Like, what went wrong with his life?
Like one day he's like teaching, advanced calculus at a university, and then like the weekend comes and he just like puts on a suit of armor and he's like, I'm gonna stab things and use my math skills when stabbing doesn't work.
He's sitting there teaching math, and Ram Jam just sticks his head in and throws a black suit at him and goes, you're a ninja now. Come on.
Which is pretty much how you get a job in Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah, you just like, I'm so bored of being a fighter. I'm a pirate now.
I like to think that Ram Jam is the one deciding this for everybody. So like one day he comes in and he's just like, hey, you know how like I've been a samurai for a long time and I have all this training? Well, from now on, my thing is that whatever ground I'm standing on, I can do magic based on it. And they're like, that's a weird thing, and we kind of needed a samurai. Well, that's okay, because that guy over there who's a monk, he's the samurai now, and the monk guy's like, aw, I just got, like, my healing spell.
But I just decided not to kill anything anymore. Too bad.
Shut up, Gary. Everybody knows monks are worthless.
Yeah, the thought that he's picking everyone's job. Like, do you have to apply for jobs with him? Like, why do you want to be the samurai ninja time lord? Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I like to think he's just kind of like a dictator, and he's just like, all right, you're this now. We're reorganizing the whole department.
And a question about all these people that you basically wreck their entire lives by not ever letting them master any sort of vocation. At the end when he rides off, did he just leave them all?
Yeah, and they gotta like try to find day jobs with their random assortment of skills. So they gotta go to like a bakery and be like, I know some samurai stuff, and I also can summon a dragon. And they're like, well, can you summon anything else besides a dragon? No, I only did summoning for like a year.
I'm an alchemist mathematician who can control nature depending on where I stand. None of these skills are very good for a banker.
Yeah, your chemist goes to get a job at a pharmacy, and he's just like, well, I can throw a potion all the way across the store. Okay, can you throw a poison antidote? No, I don't know how to throw a jar of poison antidote. Well, it's probably the same as throwing a potion. Nope, totally different thing. But I do know how to use a gun. Why? Oh, and I can jump really high from my time as a lancer.
I need my diarrhea medicine. Just throws it in their face. Oh!
Whoa, that's on the high shelf. It's a good thing I got jump +2.
Yeah, so Ram Jam left a bunch of people just not knowing what to do. And you think they would be war criminals in this narrative, like hunted down. Like, join my army. Oh, I'm going to leave before this gets too hot. And they're like, what do we do? And he's like, I don't know, blame yourself or God.
Peace out, haters.
Hopefully someone will clear my name, and by property of transference, all of you will be cleared later. Yeah, I still love Final Fantasy Tactics, and I will continue to play it every few years until I figure out what the story is. Ram Jam left. We never know if his name gets cleared. I assume it did because this historian wasn't burned at the stake a second time. I mean, it's a different historian. You generally don't burn someone at the stake a second time unless you super hate them. I think that probably brings us to the end of Final Fantasy Tactics, which is sad. So, any final thoughts on the greatest Final Fantasy game ever made?
I mean, not anything earth-shattering. It's a really good game. Your main character, Ram Jam, is a very skilled squire and knight, and despite this, his best skills seem to just be yelling a lot. That was the skill that I used the most with Ram Jam, was just like yelling at everyone.
I mean, he's a motivational speaker.
He's like an abusive football coach. He's just yelling at everyone until they go faster. I want to see you ninjaing a lot more than you're ninjaing right now. We're getting ninjaed all over the battlefield because you don't ninja hard enough.
So what you're saying is Final Fantasy Tactics is Friday Night Lights.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, so that's probably going to do us for this episode. If you want to contact us, the info's in the show notes. And I guess I'm Donald. That was Brad. And we will see you next time. And I am leaving a note for myself right here to close this episode with Black Betty.
Whoa, Black Betty, bam lamb. Whoa, Black Betty, bam lamb. Black Betty had a child. Bam lamb, the damn thing gone wild. Bam lamb, she said a word not of mine. Bam lamb, the damn thing gone blind. Bam lamb, I said, oh, Black Betty, bam lamb. Whoa, Black Betty, bam lamb.
No, we can't do that.